the other one that I think is a huge way that we give permission and is often connected with trauma as well is unforgiveness. I had medical trauma through various miscarriages that I had, and kind of medical abuse or just a lack of compassionate treatment during some of those miscarriages, and also some rejection trauma, like that was accumulating from my past and through circumstances that were happening here in Peru as well. And then just me not listening to my body when I was stressed, when my kids were kind of acting up, I would just absorb that stress in my body rather than being like, actually, I need to not fight them, but I need to like action something, or I need to walk away from this situation rather than just stand and absorb that stress. And so I think all of that accumulated in my body to a point where I had kind of a breakdown. I lost the ability to stand, and kind of, yeah, overwhelmed. My system got overwhelmed. And I think through those different things, especially with the rejection element of that was connected to PTSD for me, I needed to do a forgiveness process that was very, very specific. So for me, I knew that I had some forgiveness issues, and I had done like a God, I forgive this person kind of prayer, but I was still feeling kind of really physically affected. So anytime that I would think about that person or there might be interaction, I would start shaking. It would be kind of I was still having trauma responses, and I could feel it in my body related to them. And actually I was doing a course on spiritual warfare, and they were talking about unforgiveness and the importance of forgiveness. And what they encouraged us to do was to first of all write the name of the person. And you could, like they said to us, don't necessarily start with the person who's the most difficult to forgive first. Start with somebody easy. So I started with somebody easy first, but you write down the name of the person first of all, and then you write a list of everything that you can think of that you need to forgive them. And I think this was key for me. It was the specifics, because I'd done like a blanket, I forgive that person. But in my mind and my heart, there was still like so many little resentments and little things that were going on that were connected with it. So I had to like sit down and write down every single thing that I forgave those people for. And we were encouraged as well to write because it made me feel. So then looking at what are the things how did that affect me? So for example, I don't know. I'm trying to think of an example. I forgive my husband because
I don't
know. I'm trying to think of an example.
You're right there.
My husband for not doing the washing up because it made me feel overwhelmed. Like it could be even silly little things like that, up until I forgive this person for not talking to me because that made me feel not worthy and not accepted and powerless. So going through those things, and then saying a prayer, releasing that person, saying, God, I forgive you for this. Before God, I forgive this person for this because it made me feel. Mm-hmm. And then the important part after that was then saying, okay, enemy, I have now forgiven this person because of this thing, and you therefore no longer have permission to act on any area of my life with those things that I've just brought before the Lord in forgiveness. I tell you, enemy, to go wherever Jesus sends you, and you are not to return. And that was the spiritual that was the spiritual warfare aspect of the forgiveness. It wasn't dramatic in the sense of there being like demons flying everywhere. It was just simply saying, you no longer have permission in my life in that area. Where I have forgiven, you no longer have permission, and so you have to go where Jesus sends you. There's kind of, I think in the Bible, there's so many different places that demons are sent, and the easiest thing for me is just to say, go where Jesus sends you, because they're under Jesus's authority ultimately. And then after that, I just prayed a prayer saying, God, all those areas that the enemy has been had permission, just come and heal those right now. Just come and restore. And I want to walk in truth now. And it may be as well at that point, like writing out the promises that are like looking at the lies that we believed as a result can be helpful too. But that was the process for me, and it just was a night and day difference. When I went through that process, there was a night and day difference in the physical reactions I was having in my body connected with the trauma with that person. The enemy no longer had power or authority in that particular area, and intrusive thoughts that I was having day after day with those resentments or different things went as well. And since that time, there have been moments like that I did that process in September of last year. So I would say this year there's been a couple of times where that's wanted to resurface, and I've just done the process again.
Yep.
And it hasn't been ongoing. It's kind of been those things like, oh, you get for a week I might start having, and I'm like, okay, I just need to sit down and do this process again and like get rid of whatever the enemy's trying to bring back in again. So that was, I would say, almost that was the last piece in the jigsaw puzzle of kind of my PTSD recovery, but it was an important piece, and it was the piece, the unforgiveness was the bit that lingered more than a lot of the other stuff, just because it hadn't been dealt with.